My Detroit sports fans, I am your host, Lance Nacho Martinez. Welcome back to the My Detroit Sports Show. This week we're going to have a Pistons theme show, rocking the winter hat indoors like a hipster. I got my Grant Hill Filas on right now, if you can see right there. We're going to talk to Pistons insider Justin Brown about just where the Pistons are, where they rank. Right now they're sitting about 500. And just how they measure up in the East going forward. But before that, I want to thank you for tuning in to last week's My Detroit Sports Show. Last time we asked the question, besides Detroit, what teams do you root for? I follow LA sports teams as well as Detroit. We don't want any bandwagon fans, though. Just speaking of bandwagon fans, I was in Cleveland last week for the Warriors. And there's a lot of diehard Warriors fans out there. So I also root for just individual players. I like Draymond Green because he's from Saginaw, but it kind of conflicts with being a Clipper fan as well. But, he's always been a cool guy to me when we do some of the local charity stuff around Saginaw and East Lansing and whatnot. So, you got to love Durant. You got to love Curry. Those are just the nice superstars around the league. But you ask anybody in Cleveland who's, supposedly a diehard Warriors fan who run TMC and they have no idea who you're talking about. So, if you want to check out any of the non-Detroit related posts that I do, go to iFollowSports. Give them a follow. You'll see a lot of when visiting teams come to town and whatnot. So, but anyways, I'm just gonna go back to the question: what teams you root for outside of Detroit? And one of the longtime supporters of mine, Jeff, writes, I support the Minnesota Vikings because before I was born, my dad knew a player from the Vikings since he was a kid, and now he's always someone I look up to and continue to watch the Vikings since I was around 4 or 5. All right, thank you, Jeff. I love that Minnesota Miracle, even though I hate our division rivals. Another longtime supporter of mine, Chris Atwater, he writes, I'm a Saints fan. My family is from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so I grew up rooting for them. I was really excited when Mark Ingram got drafted, being from Flint and graduating from the same high school. I'm a few years old, LOL. Saints fans are the best. The atmosphere in the dome is nuts. Thank you, Chris. Flint Town. Looking for more sports-related content outside of Detroit? Then check out some of our posts over at ifollowsports.com. Up next, let's go to the phone and bring in co-founder, co-owner of My Detroit Sports. He writes all the My Pistons weekly columns for us. He's been a longtime Pistons fan and season ticket holder. Let's bring in Justin Brown. What's going on, Justin?
Hi, Lance. Thanks for having me.
Now, the Pistons are currently the 8th seed. Do you see any potential of them grabbing that 4th seed? What stands out to you thus far in the season?
So I think the biggest part of the Pistons' success has been improved play from a number of players. Everyone's talked about Andre Drummond's free throws and him hitting a higher percentage. But the biggest thing with that is it's preventing teams from doing the hack of Drummond and allowing him to stay on the court more, especially in the fourth quarter. He's also avoiding foul trouble. So just him being able to stay on the court and being healthier than he was last season has led to him having this all-star level campaign. We also have improved play from Tobias Harris. I think the trade for Avery Bradley opened up a position for him where he wasn't looking over his shoulder and splitting the role with Marcus Morris, and he's taken ownership of that role. He's a young veteran. He's been around since 2011, but he's still 25 years old, so he's just starting to enter his prime, and he's put together his best season to date. I think Avery Bradley has been great for the Pistons. He's been an upgrade over Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. KCP was a great player, but Avery Bradley is just a little bit better. And until recently, the health of Reggie Jackson. When he went down last season, that's when the Pistons began to, they got off to a slow start and they struggled without him and they struggled when he wasn't healthy. I think the silver lining is that Ish Smith has been a great player in the six-man role and is carried over to where he's been in the starting lineup. Every time the Pistons give him an opportunity, he exceeds everyone's expectations. So that's been a huge part of their success. And I think also the work that Reggie Bullock has done has been a big part of the Pistons' success. He's put in a lot of hard work that went unnoticed, and it's starting to pay off for both him and for the Pistons on the floor.
The Pistons are basically at the halfway mark. Do you see them making any moves, any trades, anything that'll kind of fit their needs?
The Pistons will definitely be active at the trade deadline. Their biggest needs are more scoring and more rebounding. Now, they're third in the NBA for overall three-point percentage, but in the bottom six for field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and free throws attempted per game. And you can't put that all on Andre Drummond, so I think he needs some help here. They need help with front court scoring, and just scoring in general would be great if they could get a Lou Williams or Jamal Crawford, but those guys aren't available. So I think Nikola Mirotic is a player who I would target. We're past the January 15th deadline where he can be traded. So the Pistons need to put in their best offer to bring him on board if they want to be contenders. Another interesting trade rumor was between the Pistons and Hornets. It was for Kemba Walker, for Reggie Jackson, Stanley Johnson, and Luke Kennard. So that would definitely give the Pistons a different look. You hate to move on from Reggie Jackson, but in two recent top draft picks. But at the same time, if you can get an all-star, you have to do it. I think the Pistons need to decide where they are, not in terms of who they want to be, but what they're going to do with Avery Bradley, because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season, and one way to address that is at the trade deadline. Stanley Johnson is an interesting trade chip. His defense is there, but his offense isn't, and I think other teams will be interested in taking a chance on him, and the Pistons, if they want to improve, will need to go down that road. The other area that they need to address is rebounding. Andre Drummond is leading the league in rebounds at 15 per game, but the Pistons are 19th in overall rebounds. They're getting out-rebounded, and I think, again, they need some help in the front court. Because Eric Moreland and Boban Marjanovic, they've done a great job, but I think they miss John Lure, and they need another power forward.
All right. Now, do you see any Pistons making the All-Star game?
Andre Drummond is the Pistons' most obvious all-star. He's averaging 15 rebounds a game and leading the league in rebounds. There's his improved free throw shooting, but most importantly is his improved passing. He'd never averaged more than 1.1 assists per game, and now he's averaging 3.8. And that improved passing is a large part of why the Pistons are third in the league in three-point percentages, those passes from Andre Drummond. I think the second choice for a Pistons all-star would be Tobias Harris. He's been the consistent, second scorer on the team all season. He's second in scoring behind LeBron James for small forwards. But the biggest thing for selecting an all-star is team wins. And the more games you win, the more voters want to reward you with additional representation. So Tobias Harris is the second option, but the Pistons have to prove that they deserve two all-stars. And so this upcoming stretch will be very important for showcasing Tobias Harris and why he deserves to be sent to Los Angeles.
When we taped the My Detroit Sports Show, we were almost certain that Andre Drummond was locked to make the All-Star game, but that wasn't the case. I think the record has something to do with it. Maybe if they were in the playoff picture, he would have made it. Regardless, he's a very polarizing figure in Detroit. He made the All-Star game in 2016 when the Pistons last made the playoffs. But it seems like when he got that big contract extension, he started to regress last year. But, like every year, there's always snubs, and Andre Drummond was no exception this year. And whether you love or hate the guy, he's put in the work. You can see his improvements in the free throw line. He should have been rewarded with an all-star selection, but, as it goes, Detroit basketball, right? Going forward, do they have what it takes to contend in the playoffs? What would be a successful season for them?
In order for this to be a successful season, the Pistons need to make the playoffs. There are 5 teams competing for 4 spots. Right now, Philadelphia is on the outside looking in. I don't think the Knicks have what it takes to push their way into the playoff picture. So, in order for it to be a success, the Pistons first need to make the playoffs. I think they don't want to just stop there. The goal should be to win 45, 46, 47 games and make a run at the 4 seed. Washington has been inconsistent, and that's why the game on Friday is so important, and why ESPN is airing it is because it has those sorts of playoff implications. And just making the playoffs isn't enough. It's been since 2008 under the late Flip Saunders since the Pistons have won a series or even a playoff game. So I don't think it's outrageous to ask them to play hard in the playoffs, and even if they don't win a series, to win a couple of games and really learn something about themselves and what it takes to win. That's what this season is about. These are young guys who are having their first taste of success and expectations, and they need to be able to grow under the heat of playoff play. And you don't learn until you go through those games, and that should be the focus, is not only making the playoffs, but really making an impression there, winning some games, and finding out what it takes to go from where they are to where they need to be true contenders.
For estate planning, trademarks, and business agreements, visit brownbrotherslaw.com for all your contractual needs. All right, up next, we're talking to possibly one of the biggest Pistons fans. Her social media is nothing but Pistons love every day. Let's talk to Jamisha. How are you, Jamisha?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Now, how long have you been a Pistons fan?
I've been a Pistons fan since '04, since Chauncey, Rip, and Big Ben was in.
Okay, now, over the Palace, we had some good memories. Now, have you been down to LCA?
Yes.
What do you think of it?
I like it. I love the red seats. Parking is just a little crazy.
Right,
but
right.
Other than that, I like it. After the game, a lot of restaurants and stuff that's still open that you can attend. So I like it.
Okay, now, who's your favorite Pistons player?
I have a couple. It's just my favorite. Andre is my favorite. I like Tobias, but probably Ish and Andre.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Jamisha, there's no bigger Pistons fan than you, and I've seen a lot of your photos and whatnot, and I just want to give you an autographed Ish Smith photo. So.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. Well, hey, I'll get at you later, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. We just gave away an Ish Smith autograph photo. Show This Is Where Hockeytown Lives on the next My Detroit Sports Show, and we'll give away an autographed Mike Green souvenir puck. All right, make sure you get at me at My DET Sports or My Detroit Sports on Facebook or YouTube for any questions and comments you might have on the Pistons going forward this season. Stay up to date with your favorite Detroit sports teams with our My Pistons Weekly and My Red Wings Weekly columns. All right, my Detroit sports fans, before I leave you, I want to know, who's your pick to win the Super Bowl? And you're looking in a crystal ball, looking in the future. When will the Lions ever win their first Super Bowl? I went to a church with comedian actor George Lopez, and apparently they lifted the curse off of the Detroit Lions before the season. And even though they didn't make the playoffs this year, hopefully a Super Bowl is in their future. I want to know, what year do you think that will be? Also, in the next few weeks, we're going to talk to fashion designer Ty Mopkins over at Mr. Allen's. He's the creator of these famous starter jackets that people just go absolutely nuts for. But next time on the My Detroit Sports Show, we're going to do a Red Wings themed show this time. We're going to talk to insider Garrett. You might know him as Colo over at Colo's Corner Podcast. But until then, check us out on Facebook and YouTube /My Detroit Sports. Or if you're on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, we're at My DET Sports. Thanks a lot, and I will see you soon.